Hello everyone, today I'm gonna present my third work in progress video at the end of week 6. Starting from the last work in progress video, I have established a 3D development process for the 3D peak model, and from there I'll decide to apply the same process to the remaining 11 models in the 12 zodiac animals. All models will follow the process of being modeled and then UV mapped in Maya, then being put into Procreate in iPad, where I can hand painted my 3D, and then rigging. Either I rig it in Maya and then animate in Maya for some difficult animals. For animals that have the ability to be applied as humanoid, I will put it into Mixamo, help assist with rigging for the model itself, and then apply the animation in the library into it. The first model that I have done all of these processes is the rat model. As you can see, for the rat, it has quite a similar structure to human, so it's very easy to rig and animate in Mixamo. The texturing process is really fun because, as you can see in the Dongho painting, the rat is relatively really small, so I kind of like have to combine both of my visualization and imagination to be able to come up with a model, and this is how it looks like in AR. For the buffalo model, at first I modeled the buffalo so that it looks like a normal buffalo that stands on the ground with 4 legs. But then because for humanoid animation, the model needs to have a T pose. So I tweaked the model so that the buffalo kind of standing up and have 2 arms wide apart. And then fingers crossed testing it in Mixamo. And after many trials, it works. So my models now can be animated using Mixamo library. And the texturing process is really fun because I discovered some textures brushes in Procreate that can mimic the kind of like washed out and being faded texture of the paintings in real life. So all of my animals now have this kind of like very rustic, very raw, also being hand painted textures. For the rooster model, the UV mapping process was really consuming for this model because, as you can see, it has wings, it has a lot of feathers for the tail. So that's why I have to kind of UV map it mostly manually, because the automatic plans that Maya detects cannot detect the rooster well enough because it's quite a complicated model. And then because I already adjusted the wings so that it looks like a T-pose, thankfully it works in Mixamo when I import the model in, and I can apply a lot of humanoid animation into the rooster. Also include some fun animation like a chicken dance for this rooster model. The texturing process is quite time consuming for this model because the painting is really detailed and very extraordinary, like hand brushes. The original paintings has very extraordinary hand-painted kind of like layers of feathers and make the rooster really visually appealing. So the texturing process in Procreate, I tried to mimic all of that, and this is the end result in AR. So this, for the rooster model, it's quite more detailed than the remaining models, but I think have a little bit of variety can be a fun thing. For the horse model, I decided to animate it within Maya itself because, as you can see, it's really hard. The horse body has a narrower body and arm space than buffalo, so I decided not to do the same method as the buffalo, where I made it T-pose and then apply humanoid animation. For the horse animation, I just wanted to be straightforward, like a horse walking, and I painted it relatively simple as well, because the painting we had with this animal is very simple, because it's not trying to communicate the horse as much as the hero that's riding this horse. And this is how the horse looks like in AR. For the monkey, another easy model because it already has the same structure as human. So modeling it as T-pose and then putting it into Mixamo is very easy and fast. The paintings of this monkey, as I talked already in the first work in progress video, it's an emerging painting from an artist in the modern era. So it's quite simple as well, and that's why the texturing process, I need to kind of like put a little bit more of my own touch and imagination into the monkey, and this is how it looks like in AR. For the dog model process, and because there were a lot of 3D scannings available online, I feel like I should utilize that and apply it, and then I put into Maya and remodel the meshes a little bit to make it simpler and coherent with other 3D animals in my collection. After that, I rig this 3D model and apply a very, very simple animation of the neck, because I actually really don't want to be creative and having fun with this animal, as the nature of it is a very religious and a very respectful figure in our cultures. So I decided to keep it as it is. The next process for this model would be texturing in Procreate. The next model that I haven't done with all the process is the tiger. For the tiger model, rigging in Maya seems to not working well, so I just decided to, fingers crossed, and put it into Mixamo after tweaking it to make it look more like a T-pose, and then thankfully it works. So right now, the animations in Mixamo that I mainly apply to my tiger is crawling, and having very subtle animation that mimics like lying, crawling, that mimics the real action that it would do in real life. So this model, the next steps would be texturing it in Procreate as well. For the dragon model, it was quite a time-consuming process because I was initially trying to tweak and play with the tail of the dragon, making it bigger, thicker, and then it doesn't work when I import it into Mixamo. So what I do is I have to redo all of the process and keep the original tail of the dragon. The reason is Mixamo, because it auto-rigs the animation, the model for you. The tail can make the software confused with the body, and then it distorts the mesh really badly later after it finished rigging your model. So I decided to keep the tail really short and simple. So the next step for this model would also be texturing. For the snake model, because the concept of the snake painting is the childhood game where the snake ascends above the clouds, so I decided to create a looping animation in Maya that the snake will follow along a spiral curve and then keep looping like that. The animation is quite done already, but there's some issue with looping that I need to fix and wrap up before I want to texture it and then bring it to Unity. So this is one of like a slightly different animal that has different animation concept from the rest, which I also want to mention. For the goat, I have finished with the modeling and rigging, but because I have already spent a lot of time with the horse animations, my next steps will be looking into how to specifically transfer the bones and animations from the horse into this goat, because they share a similar structure, and I think it will be helpful for me to know this kind of trick later for my future work as well. For the cat, the last model in this collection, I decided to keep it to the last because I want to test out a different method of modeling creatures rather than just digital sculpting in Maya. For this cat model, I want to play with clay in order to mold this kind of flesh and textures similar to what you're seeing in real life, in using my own hands. And then I will use 3D scanning in order to get the model from what I've created from the clay, and then apply very subtle animation and also paint it. So I feel like for this cat model, even though it's time consuming, I also want it to be included as an experimental process and in this research project, because it's quite relevant to the idea of how these animals can be preserved using handcrafted methods and combined with 3D technologies as well. For the prototyping development, the main development that my developer has made is making a script in Unity that will calculate the user's zodiac based on the year of birth. This is done by some mathematical calculations by dividing the birth year by 12 and then mapping the remainder modulus to a certain zodiac. So once the animal is determined, the script activates a preview painting and displays it to the user. The next steps that I'll be iterating in the next 2 weeks will be putting these 3D animals into Unity and then test the app in different locations and continue the remaining 3D process of the remaining 3 models. Thank you for watching. See you in the next work in progress video.